This is the second time I'm trying to film this, and listen, if it doesn't work this time around, chaos. It will be the end of the world as we know it. I'm being so for real. Hello guys, what's up? It's Belle. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, and if you've come back, thank you so much. Today, you guys, as I sort of said in that little intro there, I am filming this video for the second time in the same day. The first time it just like did not work out for me. The lighting was awful, super overexposed, and my microphone died. So I thought, you know what? We're gonna change it up a little bit. We're gonna give it a go number 2. So today, you guys, we are doing a video that honestly I've been looking forward to doing since like the beginning of this year when I started this channel. And today we are doing the end of year book tag. As I said, I'm super excited to do this one because this is my first year on YouTube. Of course, I gotta give some credit to Destiny, who I saw do this, and I believe she may have originated the questions that I'm going to be using for today as well. So I am just so excited to sort of talk about some of the highlights, some of the lowlights, some of the excitement and disappointment and everything in between that I went on for my reading journey this year. So yeah, it's going to be a nice sit down, cozy video. So as always, you guys, grab a drink, get comfy, get cozy, and let's get right into the video. Okay, so as I mentioned, I do have most of the questions here are from Destiny's original video. I will tag it down below if you guys want to have a look at that as well. But I do have 22 questions here. I think I may have added a couple of my own, but I've got 22 questions here. I've tried to choose one book for each and like make sure I don't repeat. So I've tried to create a little bit of variation here as well. So question number 1 is your most disappointing read of the year. So I actually have 2. I sort of was like, I don't know, they were disappointing reads for different reasons, and I'll explain why. So the first one I actually don't have the physical copy of anymore, and unfortunately, if you guys know me, it was Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I know this is a lot of people's favorite book and favorite series, and let me just explain to you what happened with this. So before I went into this book, the only sort of information that I knew about it was that it was supposed to be like Gossip Girl, but like set in London, high society, sort of young adults and whatnot, and that is literally all I knew about this series and this book, other than the fact that it is so wildly loved and like every man and their dog just like drones on about the Maggie Parks series. So of course I went and bought all of the books, and I had the first one obviously sitting on my shelf. But not only did I buy every single book before I read the first one, I bought all of the beautiful like special, you know, the indie covers that have now sort of, I don't know, you can still buy them I think, but anyways, I went and bought all of the books and I read it, and I gave it 1 star because I am just gonna tell you why I didn't like it, because I think a lot of people should actually know that the cheating trope is so heavily prominent in this series and in relation to the relationship. These two people, like, you start the book knowing that someone, like, it's not like it happens at the end of the book. This book starts off and you know that one half of this main couple have cheated on the other, and it's just this continual like cycle and endless loop of, even though this person has cheated on the other, he doesn't want her to date anybody else and she doesn't want him to date anybody else, and it is so incredibly toxic and frustrating. And not only that, touching on the toxicity, the most toxic group of friends that I've ever read about. Like, it was driving me insane. I can't believe how much this was like idolized and people love this book so much. If you can get past the cheating trope and whatnot, like, sure, this might be for you, but I don't think a lot of people know about that going into it. So yeah, that was my first disappointment of the year. And then my second disappointment, unfortunately, was Daydream by Hannah Grace. I have talked about this quite a lot on my channel and on my TikTok, but Daydream was a book that I was so excited for. It's probably like in my top 3 most like anticipated releases of this year, because I just love Icebreaker and Wildfire so much. Like, those books were both 5 stars. Wildfire as well was one of my absolute favorite reads of last year. Daydream I was just so excited for, because obviously more from Hannah Grace, but also Henry was a side character that we'd been seeing, you know, whisperings and sprinkles of throughout the previous 2 books, and I just fell in love with him as a character, and I said, yes, it's his time to step into the light and be the lead. And then it all just fell to, you know, it all fell apart from there. So I'll tell you the issues that I had with this book. The first one being, I truly feel like this book fell into the trap that a lot of new releases are falling into, and it's that authors are trying to push books out so much faster due to demand, instead of, you know, taking the time on the editing floor, giving the book the time and the love that it needs for it to be a fully realized and quality book, because I feel like I was saying, a lot of books are just being pushed out because of high demand, and this book just like fell so flat because it wasn't given enough love on the editing floor. It could have been fleshed out so much more. I think it could have gone a completely different way. So I was like super disappointed. I also feel like Henry just lost all of his character that we like knew and we got in the first couple of books. Like he felt like a completely different person. And then on top of that, to sort of wrap it up in a bow, Hallie and Henry were just way too similar. And that's not me saying that all couples have to be in opposites attract, anything like that. Absolutely not. I just felt like there has to be a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of yin and yang. You can have two introverts be in a relationship, but there was just not enough yin and yang, no push and pull. And I feel like neither of them would have helped the other learn anything or like get them out of their comfort zone. Does that make sense? I was so upset about this book. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars, and it was, really disappointing because I wanted to love this so bad. And like, look how beautiful that cover is. Yeah, so they're my disappointing reads of the year. Okay, question number 2 is, what was your underdog book of the year? So for me, an underdog book is a book that like you sort of went into blindly or like had no idea what it was going to be about, or when you went into it, you didn't realize it was like a genre or a trope or whatever that you typically enjoyed, and then you end up completely like obsessing over it and devouring it. So that book for me was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Now I was very, very, very graciously and luckily sent an early copy of this book. And for those who don't know Ali Hazelwood's writing, she's very, very, very infamously known for writing her STEM romances. So of course you've got The Love Hypothesis, The Love on the Brain. This was her first dabble into paranormal romance, and that was super exciting for me because I thought, oh, let's see if she can sort of transition from, you know, the cute fluffy STEM romances into a different lane and a different genre. So this book is an arranged marriage between a werewolf and a vampire, and when I tell you guys, this book had me by the throat. It had me by the throat. It was so good. I read it in one day. Like, I was so surprised and so taken aback by how seamlessly she just like grabbed this genre and ran with it and made it work. It was funny, it was sexy, it was like the banter, the tension, because obviously you got like these two people who can't stand each other in an arranged marriage. And it was, yeah, such a surprise, such a left field for me. And that's why it's 100% my underdog book of this year, because yeah, more people need to read this. If you love Ali's other romances, please read this. And I'm so excited for Deep End. I just feel like I said, she's an author who has just like stood the test of time and is able to transition so seamlessly between genres. I will always be an Ali Hazelwood fan, always. Okay, question number 3 is a book that was overhyped. And again, I couldn't just pick one, so I picked 2. The first one I'm going to talk to you guys about is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This one for me, I will just explain myself. So again, another very, 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 very popular book that I think across all platforms people are ranting and raving about. And I actually really was enjoying this book up until like the 70% mark. I was flying through it. I loved like the past present dynamic of it too, and trying to work out, I guess, like what has happened with this couple that sort of led them to where they are today. And then the author went and did the worst thing that they could have done. The authors, I should say, did the worst thing they could have done. And they threw a trope in the end that I despise, that is so triggering and like interesting because it can be interpreted in 2 separate ways. Now, because I know y'all do not like spoilers, I will put a quick timestamp on the screen here because I feel like it's something that should be, I don't know, known before going into the book, because like I said, for me it was triggering. But let me just put a timestamp. I know you guys don't like spoilers. I don't like spoilers either. However, I am going to discuss the trope that is in the end of this book. So final warning, there's a timestamp. Feel free to skip ahead. Like I was saying, this does follow like a past, present, friends to love, like childhood friends to lovers sort of dynamic. And the entire time you're trying to figure out like why these two are no longer together and like speaking in the present day, even though they were together when they were a lot younger. What ends up sort of being revealed is that the male main character cheats on the female main character. However, it is done in a way where he was intoxicated, he slept with somebody, and then he says to the female main character, "I thought it was you." And I was so triggered. I was like, no, because I've had a man do that to me in the past, okay? I don't care how intoxicated you are. That is not a thing, okay? Like, that is not an excuse. I thought it was you. No. So angry. But then the other flip side to this that I do see a lot of people also mentioning is that, you know, the male main character could be interpreted that he was essayed, which I totally can understand and respect as well. I still think both are super triggering things, and I don't think the book could have been like should have been resolved in that way. I think it could have been done in such a more delicate and beautiful manner. I just think it was the worst way to sort of explain why these two people were not talking. So that was Love in Other Words. And then my second book that I thought was overhyped was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, and I'll explain again. This is a young adult novel. It is set in high school, and I think for me, because I'm now 24, I really felt disconnected from the characters. I felt like I couldn't relate to them. So that's not to necessarily say that this book was bad. You know, it had a lot of really fun moments. It was really cutesy and, you know, swoon-worthy at parts. And you guys, I do love a bit of young adult, but I think maybe for this particular book, it took me almost 2 weeks to read, which for me as a reader is just not like me, and I think that sort of is a tell that I wasn't drawn to like wanting to know what happened next. So I think for everybody saying that this was like the best thing since sliced bread, it wasn't, for me at least, you know. And it was hard because I had a lot of my friends who, you know, other you know, content creators who, you know, only read adult romances and things like that, and they said, you know, try this, it's still really good, like you'll love it. And I'm like, bestie, what happened? What happened? Because like, okay, question number 4 is, who was your favorite book couple of the year? So this was so difficult because as I'm filming this right now, you guys, I have read 91 books this year, which is insane. And, you know, there's a lot of different, because I do primarily read like romance and romantasy and things like that. I do come across a lot of fictional couples throughout the year. And the one that I'm going to show you guys is one that I just think has, like, honestly, they have stuck with me since the beginning of the year. There's been no wavering. Like, I think about them all the time, and you guys may know who it's going to be before I even hold the book up, but it is Reese and Feyre. Ever since I read that series at the beginning of the year, prior to reading that, I had not ever read a book with that type of like earth-shattering, all-consuming romance. I have read some things now that are a little bit similar to it, but before that, prior to that, I hadn't read anything like it before, and I just like will always remember them being the first sort of, I can't spoil what type of relationship that they have, but you know, like it was my first like experience with that, and like the romantic revelation in the second book is just like so insane, and I will always remember it. They are such like a beautiful couple to me, and I'm so excited to see where the rest of the series goes when it does come out, because I just want more of them. I want more of them. Okay, question number 5 is your favorite main character or characters of the year. And what I decided to do for this one is give a male character and a female character, but again, I couldn't just choose. So I picked 1 male main character and 2 female main characters, because, you know, how am I supposed to pick out of 90 books who my favorite was? Anyways, my favorite MMC of this year was without a doubt Isaiah Rhodes from Play Along. I talk about this book and this man till the cows come home. From the moment I met him, even in the previous book, I was immediately like obsessed with this man, and like fully, I can't explain. I was like on a leash. I was like, walk me like a dog. You know what I mean? Like, I love him so much. He's just the most goofy, larger than life, funny, playful male main character. He's a baseball player, and he's just so cheeky. Like, the one word that I have from him is cheeky. I think about him all the time, and I am just, yeah, quite literally obsessed. I think about Obsessed by Mariah Carey every single time I think about him. And then for my female main characters, the first one that I have is Teddy Anderson from Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. So Teddy, we sort of have known for the previous 2 books in this series as part of the Rebel Blue Ranch series. However, of course, this was her time to sort of take center stage and be the lead of the book. And every time I do talk about this book, I do say that the romance is okay, but the respective like individual plots of both parts of the couple truly are like the heroes of the book. And Teddy in particular, I just relate to her on such a deep level. There is this plot line that she has around like everybody in her life who's of the same age. She feels like they're hitting all these goals and, you know, milestones. Like they might be getting engaged, getting a house, you know, having kids, blah, blah, blah. And she just feels like she's like staying stuck and stagnant and, you know, is like falling behind. But there's also this like beautiful way that she gets referenced in this book, and she always gets called the lion because she is so fierce and wild and fiery and protective. And it just made me relate to her so much, because I'm a Leo, and like that's me. Like in my friendship group, I'm always the protector, I'm always the fierce one, like ready to like go to battle for my friends and my family. And like I got emotional when I like read that in the book. And finally, a book that matches my my shirt. I have Skylar from Wild Eyes. She is a famous pop singer, but you know, she comes to this small town because her parents have always controlled, you know, her image and the type of music that she puts out, and it's time for her to finally like break free of that and stand up for herself. And she is just a beautiful character. She has such a big heart, and I know that's like very generic, but I really just like resonated with her. I also love that like she knows she can stand on her own 2 feet. She does not need a man to fight her battles for her, and the way she just loves like the MMC's like 2 kids, this is a single parent romance as well, is just so beautiful. And like I said, she loves with her whole, you know, heart and soul, and that's just something I relate to very deeply. Okay, question number 6 is, what is a book that surprised you this year? And the one that I ended up picking for this question was Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. And I always say this, not enough people know about this book. It's just so good. And the cover can definitely throw a lot of people, because it threw me into thinking that it's like a Halloween fall type of read, and that is just not the case at all. So this book follows Lark and Callum. So Lark has just moved from the United States to Galway in Ireland. She's an animator, so she's just got a new job at a new studio to work on a new film that's coming out. So like a new kids film, which is super exciting. And she unknowingly moves in next door to a funeral home, or like a mortuary home, which is not ideal because she's actually currently grieving somebody in her own life. And that's part of the reason why she's wanted a fresh start and to sort of escape to a different country and have a fresh start. So the book opens and she's basically like opened her front door to a package of like body bags. She goes, I definitely didn't order those. So she goes and knocks on the, you know, the church and like the funeral home's door and said, hey, I think these are yours. And she meets Callum, who is honestly, like, for lack of a better word, he is like a gentle giant. He is so gorgeous. I just love him. He's very morally gray when we first meet him, but he's obviously like such a gentle giant. He is in a predicament at the moment where he is needing to find a wife by either his 35th or 37th maybe birthday, in order to like keep, he like owns the funeral home, but if he wants to keep it under his name, it's in a will that he needs to be married in order to inherit that for it to be his. So the two of them form a very beautiful friendship, and Lark decides to help him find a wife. So yeah, this book just has so much heart. It's super emotional, but also again, the two individual respective like plot lines of the main couple are so important and so special. It's so unique and it's so special. So I highly recommend Morbidly Yours. Okay, question number 7 is, who is your favorite new author that you discovered in 2024? So there were a few. I sort of narrowed it down to 2 because they're the authors that I just like literally cannot stop thinking about. So the first one that I have is Morgan Elizabeth. So I only started reading Morgan's books in November, I want to say, and I've read 3 of her books now, and they have all just been hits. Like, they are so funny. I always talk about one of her books in particular being like the most perfect rom-com. She just gets how to do comedy, romantic connection, spice, friendships, you know, make them super atmospheric in a way that is just like makes them so easy to get through. And I just love them so much. I really just want to like sit and go through her entire backlog because, like I said, everything I've read by her so far has just been so addictive. And then my second choice for the new author is Paisley Hope. So I've only read 2 books by her because they are part of her debut series. So I read Holding the Reins and Training the Heart, and they are both small town cowboy romances, and I just absolutely love them. Again, this is an author that like understands small town so well. Beautiful found family and like friendships in her writing. The spice is insane, and like the romantic quality of her quotes and things like that and love declarations are stunning. I can't wait to see what's to come from her. But both of those authors, I'm just very excited to sort of read more from them in the future. Question number 8 is, what is the happiest book that you read this year? And sort of echoing, oh my goodness, echoing on the Morgan Elizabeth train, I definitely have to say that Passenger Princess by Morgan Elizabeth was the happiest and the giddiest book that I read this year. So I have spoken about this again very many times, but this is a romance between a beauty pageant queen and her bodyguard. So they're basically stuck on this little like road trip around the United States for 3 months after she wins like Miss Americana, and she obviously needs a bodyguard for protection, and they sort of are on this forced proximity road trip together. It is just so like, from the moment you start the book, it is just so fun, so colorful and loud and funny, like really funny all the time. And it's a book that you will genuinely, because I did as well, you will genuinely be laughing out loud as you're reading it. She just understands the perfect elements of rom-com in this book. There is like, you know, there's one scene at the end that like involves all of the beauty pageant queens in the most hysterically cheesy thing ever, but it's done so well. And you guys know how much much I despise cheese and like cringe in a book, and this is just not it. It was so fun. I highly recommend it. I like I said, not a day goes by I don't think about this book, and it's just happy. It is the happiest perfect rom-com ever. If you guys can see my shoes in the background, no, you can't. No, you can't. Like, no, like you're lying. You're lying. You're lying. Okay, question number 9 is, what was the most frustrating book that you read this year? And when I was like trying to think of a book for this one here, I didn't want to pick a book that like either I DNF'd or I didn't love as the reason for it being frustrating. I wanted to pick a book that I did get through and enjoyed, however found it frustrating along the way, and I think this book like perfectly encapsulates that. So I've picked A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. This one here is the 5th anniversary edition, so it basically just has an extended like section in the male main character's point of view, so you can read it on Kindle Unlimited as is, but yeah, the back end sort of just gives you a bit more closure. So the reason I found this book so frustrating is because this does follow a past present timeline between B and Jamie, and it is right person wrong time, but it is over and over and over and over and over again. Like, I'm not being dramatic with the amount of overs that I just said, because I'm pretty sure this follows them from like either late high school / early college through 10 to 20 years of their life, right? And again, it's just like they're missing each other over and over and over again. And I found it so frustrating because I was literally yelling reading this, being like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, I think the reason that I ended up pushing through and actually loving this is because I truly felt like these two people had this beautiful chemistry and connection and story that I wanted them to be together so badly. It was very different from like the miscommunication-y type of plot that you had in like Magnolia Parks. I just felt like these two had such a backbone to their relationship and their dynamic that I was like, I need to see what happens. Like, I need it so badly. And you will cry, and it is just, yeah, it's very stunning. But like I said, frustrated me to no end. And then, like I said, my particular edition has a bonus bit to it from the male main character's point of view. The rest of the book is in the female main character's point of view. So yeah, definitely frustrating, but it's also a book that I really would love to get like more people's opinions on and like see what people thought, because it's so interesting. This is like some people's favorite book of all time, or people like cannot stand it. So I would love to know. Okay, question number 10 is, what was the best adaptation of the year? So before I even get into this, I just want to say that 2024 was such a great year for like book to film and TV adaptations, because in the past, even like the past 2 years, the quality of like adaptations have been shocking. Okay, Red, White, and Royal Blue, you guys know is my favorite. Okay, the movie like poisoned that book for me, which is so sad because I love it with my entire heart and soul. So anyway, there was a lot of, you know, exciting sort of adaptations coming out this year which had the potential to go so wrong. And before I tell you like my favorite of the year, I have 2 honorable mentions. So the first one is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I was the first person to say, when I found out this was being a movie, that this book should not be turned into a film. I was like, why is this book being turned into a film? Because it just had so much potential to go so incredibly wrong. However, I actually think it was done so well, so tastefully. When I went to watch this film, I went with my aunt, and sitting next to her was this couple around my age, and there's a very like big scene at the end of the film, and it's very emotional, and the male part of that couple, he was like crying, like he was breaking down, and I think that is exactly what the movie was made to do, to like spread awareness. So I think that was so special in that regard. My second honorable mention is Heartstopper season 3. I love this, you know, world and these characters so much, and I think Netflix have done truly such a great job adapting it to the screen. You guys can see the leaves all over my room. Season 3 had very heavy subject matter, and as I said, you know, done very tastefully in a way that is very informative too, and for younger people who might be watching it too, I think it's such a way to like show them how easy it is to go and talk to people and ask for help. So I just thought it was done so well. I really do hope they get renewed for season 4, because it would be nice to finally, you know, see that be concluded on the screen as well. But anyway, my favorite adaptation of this year, without a doubt, you guys are gonna know before I even hold the book up, because I was waiting 2.5 years for this. It was Bridgerton season 3, so the adaptation of Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. You guys know I love this book so much. I love Colin and Penelope so much. The reason I say this is the best adaptation of the year, you know, I could have, like last year, right, I could have said Red, White, and Royal Blue is my favorite, but it's not. It might be my favorite book. The movie was shocking, okay? But the reason that this book here got the best adaptation is because out of all of like the Bridgerton novels that have been adapted into TV seasons so far, this was the one that was done the closest to the book, had so many scenes and lines and things like that from the book, but it also kept the essence of the book and the essence of the characters so well. And I truly think that is because they got a new showrunner for season 3 who actually listened to what the fans wanted in the show and sat down with like Nick and Luke, and they knew what the fans wanted, and they said, what can we do to make this season the best, and like get everything from the book. And you can tell, like, we got the carriage scene, we got the mirror scene, we got the, you know, do I look a mess? Yes, but you're my mess. And then we had, you know, the first kiss, like a would you kiss me scene. Like, it was just done so well and handled in such a delicate and beautiful way. I was so impressed. There was so much like room for it to go so wrong, and it didn't, because in the past, like I said, the other Bridgerton like adaptations have been very different from the books, and I'm just glad that this one stayed true to quite a lot of it, because it's just, yeah, it's one of my favorites. I have watched that season and read this book to absolute filth and to death because I just love it so much. Yeah, so I was very happy. Like I said, after like the disappointment of Red, White and Royal Blue last year, this was so nice to have something sort of work in my favor. Okay, question number 11 is, what was the longest book that you read this year? And it was A Court of Silver Flames, which is the most recent, like most current book in the ACOTAR series. This book is 784 pages. It is a chunker book, and I did really enjoy this. I gave it 4.5 stars. You know, I feel like other than the first book, this was the only book in this series that I didn't give the 5-star to. It follows a different couple. I'm not going to say who, but I still, you know, I enjoyed it. There's a scene at the end that made me lose my mind. You know, I probably cried the hardest reading that out of any like scene in any book that I read this year, because the found family in this like series really is like the hero. I love it so much. And then following that, question number 12 is, what is the shortest book that you read this year? And apparently that is Shadow Me, which is one of the little Shadow Me novellas from the Shadow Me series. So there is like 10 books in this series, guys. Like, I'm being so for real. This one is 69 pages. The majority of the main books are in the point of view of the female main character or the male main character, but we do very graciously get given these very little novellas through a side character's point of view, and his name is Kenji, and I love him so much. So this is another one of his, sort of just showing the alternative point of view, and he just really like loves with his entire being. Like, he cares so much about his friends. They're like his family, you know what I mean? But he's also so funny. I always say that Tahira Murphy authentically writes comedy in a way that, you know, it's so hard to do, and she just makes him so lovable. And yeah, so that was my shortest book. Question number 13 is, what was your favorite book cover of this year? So I was having a little think, and it sort of reminded me of a bit of a trend that I saw this year. And I don't know if you guys noticed this too. There were a lot of new releases this year that had purple book covers. So I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but I'll put a few on the screen that were released this year. A lot of them had purple, which is really interesting. So I thought, why don't I pick my favorite purple book that I read this year, like purple cover, and then I'll pick my favorite like cover from the year. So my favorite purple cover, even though this book didn't come out this year, I still read it this year. It was Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. So I don't know how well you can see this, but there's some beautiful like paint swatches along here. There's a bridge, all just the different tones and the texture of the cover was really fun. And obviously it ties into the main sort of plot device in here, where we do have our two main characters doing a renovation project together, which is really fun. So I just loved it. And there's like behind it, there's like floor plans and things like that. I thought it was so clever. So that was my favorite purple book. And then my favorite just general cover this year, I love this entire series. I'm very lucky to have these special editions. It's these beautiful special editions of the Caraval trilogy. Now, I don't know how well that camera is going to pick up that gold foiling, but it is just so stunning, and on the back as well. And then inside you've got like these beautiful end pages, and on the cover you have again like a beautiful gold foiling thing that is to do with the books. And I just am loving this series. I will tell you guys now, I am just about to finish Finale, and then I want to read Spectacular. I'm hoping they'll be my last 2 reads of this year. This series is so good. Like, not enough people are like loving it as much as I think it's a Once Upon a Broken Heart. I feel like everybody talks about Once Upon a Broken Heart, but I feel like this series is so underrated. I wish I could live in this series so badly. So yeah, they're definitely my favorite covers of the year. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Okay, question number 14 is, what is a book that you have not stopped thinking about since you read it? There are a few books, as I sort of said, that, you know, have sort of not left my brain this year, but this is a book that I read in November, and yeah, I literally have not been able to stop thinking about it. I gave this book 5 stars, and I still think about like so many little intricate details and the characters, and I just want to live here, okay? It's Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I'm using my proof copy because for some reason my camera does not like the like silver foiling on the actual cover. But yeah, another one that I was very graciously sent an early proof of before it's traditionally published in Australia last month, or this month. This is a romantasy that, you know, has your similar vibes to A Court of Thorns and Roses and things like that. We do have Fae and whatnot. Like I said, I read this in a 24-hour reading challenge and I gave it 5 stars and I just loved it. But it has been a book that I think about and obsess about constantly. Like, I'm always thinking about certain things and like theorizing for the next book, and Carrion Swift, my man. Yeah, I'm very attached to this. And now that I have like the traditional pub version, next year I really want to sit down and like reread and annotate the living daylights out of it, because I annotated a little bit of this, but I want to annotate it so fully now that I just know I can't stop thinking about it. Do you guys ever have those books where you're like so obsessed with them, when you read them you don't annotate them, but then you're like, no, this is actually my new personality now, so like I need to go back and annotate, because that's how I feel about Quicksilver. Question number 15 is, what is the cringiest book that you read this year? And there's a few. You guys know I love to pull up a book if it makes me cringe or if it gives me secondhand embarrassment. But I think the book that did this to me maybe the most this year was Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Now, you guys know I love dark romance. I've read some crazy dark romances before, okay? This is not my first dabble in. So I actually really enjoyed the concept of this. I thought it was very fun and unique. And then we got to the spice, and I'm like the firmest believer that like if the intensity of spice does not like match the characters, is too much for like the setting that we're in, I just don't like it, and I will dock a star rating off of it for cringy dialogue during spice. And that's where the sort of cringe factor happened in this. So like there was like a spicy scene and he's like, pick a safe word, and she goes chainsaw, because okay, relevant, whatever. This man goes, good choice my love, because I'm about to destroy you. I just want to know who okayed that, because I would not have okayed that. You know, no. That is so cringe. Be for real. Like, I just got so much ick from it. And like I said, from then, this was like doing well. I think I gave it like a 4 star at the end of it because it really icked me out. I couldn't do it, babes. I couldn't do it. Okay, question number 16 is an unpopular book that you loved. It's really hard to do that, I guess, now, because so many of the books that you do end up reading, especially as a content creator, they're popular or they're new releases and whatnot. But I am someone who, as I was saying when I talked about Bridgerton, I love Regency romance, historical romance. I read quite a few of those this year, and I sort of decided to go back and read a little bit more Julia Quinn, but this is outside of the Bridgerton like main series. And I ended up reading Just Like Heaven. So for those who are actually familiar with the Bridgerton universe, in the book series, there is another family called the Smythe Smiths, and they are like notoriously known for giving these horrendous musicals, and all of the girls, like all of the sisters who perform, they cannot play any instruments to like save their lives. So they always like joke about them in Bridgerton by saying like, gosh, we have to go to these musicals and these soirees, even though they are like torture. Anyway, so this is the first book in that series here, and it's called Just Like Heaven. And I absolutely adored this, you guys. I can't believe how much I love this. And there's so many reasons for it. One, it was just so funny. Like, Julia Quinn writes really good comedic characters. She gives them wonderful dialogue. There's also a Colin Bridgerton little cameo in here, which of course is going to get any book brownie points. But then also what I loved about this is we have like the brother's best friend dynamic, and we have the like the flirting coach, the, you know, I'll help you find a husband coach, the marriage coach, which for those who like watch season 3 of Bridgerton and like haven't read the books, the sort of plot device that they put into the show where like Colin, you know, sort of tutors her and teaches her like how to find a husband and like helps her find a husband is not in the books. That is like not a plot. I think they sort of did that for the show, which I did really like. However, when I started this and I realized it was that trope, I was like, oh, like I've seen this film before. I've seen this play before. Like, are you kidding me? But it was just so cute to see. Like, I love that sort of like, I'll help you find a husband. Like, it's just so so sweet. There's also the like, I'll take care of you when you're sick trope as well. And I would just love to get my hands on the rest of these. But yeah, if you love Regency romance is just so sweet. It's the greatest form of escapism, I truly feel. Like if you love romance and you want to take a foot away from like a modern setting, you will love this. So question number 17 is, what were the highest and lowest rated books on Goodreads that you read this year, and do you agree? So basically what that means is like, if I go onto Goodreads, like of all the books I read this year, which book that I read had the highest average rating and which book that I read had the lowest average rating. So the book that I read this year that had the highest average rating was, of course, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Now, this has an average star rating of 4.65 stars, which is so insane, especially for the amount of like reviews that this has. For it to have an almost perfect like star rating is insane. So yeah, of course I agree with it. I gave it 5 stars, and like I said, very impressive that, you know, it has such a high rating given the amount of reviews that it does have. And then the lowest average rating book that I had read this year was A Merry Little Meet Cute, and this is by Sierra Simone and Julie Murphy. So this has an average star rating of 3.35 stars, and I also agree with this. I think I gave this book a 3 star. The issue that I sort of had with it, and it's an issue that I can find with books that are co-written by authors, you know, especially if they decide to like split who writes what part of the book and who writes what scenes and things like that. I found myself loving certain scenes and the rest of it felt flat. And then that's how I can tell that one author's obviously written the good scenes that I'm liking and the other author is maybe writing the stuff that I'm not enjoying. So it just felt really disconnected for me. So that one I agree with. It's 3.35 star average rating. Cause yeah, it was okay. Okay, question number 18 is a really fun one. So it is, what is your favorite quote from this year? So guys, I keep a reading journal, and when I do like all my spreads, if you guys have seen them, I always pick like a favorite quote from each of the books. So I couldn't just pick like one. So when I was going through both of my journals, I've got like 2 full books of journals now, and I've like tagged the ones that I liked. I couldn't pick one. So I have 3. I'm going to tell you the quotes. However, I'm not going to tell you what book they are from because I know people do not like direct like spoilers, what book, what happens, who says what. So I'm just going to give you these 3 random quotes. You're not going to have any idea where they're from, but I'll know where they're from. You know what I mean? So the first one that I have is, fear not the fall, but the life that comes from never having leaped at all. That's so beautiful. So that's my first one. My second favorite quote was, but I never asked you to be the sun. I would rather have the moon anyways. And then my third favorite quote was, I want to know how to convince you to design a smile just for me. I love that one so much. Question number 19 is, what is the book that had the most unique concept from this year? This one was like so easy to pick because I think every time I explain this book to someone, people are like, oh my God, what? Like that is so crazy. And it is The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston follows this girl called Clementine who has just like inherited an apartment from her late aunt, right? And when her aunt was still alive, she always said to Clemmy like, hey, just so you know, this apartment has magical powers. And Clementine's always been like, you are so full of it, you're lying. Until after, you know, she's moved in and one day she sees like a man standing in her kitchen and he claims that he's from 7 years in the past, which is so insane. It's the most incredible concept because it's like, it's an apartment that can travel back in time 7 years and it can travel forward 7 years in time. However, it is set in a modern setting. It is set in a romance book. It's not in a, you know, a fantasy setting. And it sort of opened up that door to me to like magical realism, you know, that magical realism trope. And that's what made this concept so unique for me because I hadn't read anything like it before, you know, I picked this up. So I think it's so special to have that sort of, again, that realism, that magical realism in a romance book. That's what I love about this book. Question number 20 is, what is a book you are so sad that you didn't get to this year? And this was like really upsetting to me because it was a new release, like a new release that came out this year. And I was really good, touch wood. Of all the books I had on my radar for this year, I was usually like grabbing them and reading them within a few weeks and I was super on top of it. And this is a book that came out in maybe April this year. And I have since read even more new releases from this author following this book. And for some reason, this one just slipped under the radar. So the book that I have is King of Sloth by Anna Huang, which is so bizarre to me because everyone has been telling me that this is like their new favorite and like the best in the Kings of Sin series now. So I've read the first 3. I think the most recent one before this was King of Greed. And I wanted to read this so badly. I don't know why, I just never got to it. And do you know what I actually think the problem was? I have this on a weird like side bookshelf here that you guys usually won't see. And I have it tucked in there with the rest of the Kings of Sin. And I think what ended up happening was that I just forgot that it was there. You know, I forgot that it was an option for me to reach for. So as the months went on and we had all new releases and blah, 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 it just like slipped my mind. And it's really sad because I really want to read this. I'm pretty sure like she's like I don't know if she's like his assistant, publicist, there we go. And he's like super lazy and things like that. I just think it could be it's a really good one. And I really want to read this before King of Envy comes out next year, because I think that comes out in like March or April maybe. Yeah, that's definitely a high priority. Question number 21 is, what is a book that you would reread that you read this year? So I sort of did mention Quicksilver already, but other than that, the other book that I would love to reread is Caught Up by Liz Tomford. So the reason I want to reread this one is, one, again, I want to just annotate it. I feel like the only book that I read in this series so far that I annotated was Play Along, but I've loved the others so much that I want to do like a proper reread and dissect the living daylights out of all three, especially The Right Move. That is like, it's my favorite one. But Caught Up was really special in particular because as I was reading it, like for the majority of the book, this was a 4.5 star. I was loving it. I loved the relationship between obviously the main couple, but this is another single dad book. And I loved the relationship between Max and Miller, who is Kai's little boy. He's like the main character. And it was super special. And I was reading it and I was reading it and I was having a good time. And I was like, where's the thing? Because so far, Mile High is a 5 star, Right Move is a 5 star. I said, are we going to continue? Are we going to get the triple whammy, right? And then there's a scene that's sort of towards the end of this book and it just broke me apart. And I remember reading it for the first time and I like had to stop, I had to put the book down and I was like heaving. It was so sad and beautiful and like touching, and I feel like it was like an out of body experience. Like I'd never experienced such emotion, like authentically displayed on page as well. Oh, it absolutely gutted me and I want to reread it again. I'm gonna cry. It was so special. Question 22. I just realized I actually have 23 questions here. Question 22 is sort of like a reading goal reflection and reflection on my 2024 sort of reading year. So in terms of my reading goal that I set myself at the beginning of this year, I set it to 60 books because I had read like 82 books in 2023. And at the beginning of this year, I had planned to go to university. I'll go back to uni, I should say. So I was going to be starting my second year of primary education. So I want to be a primary school teacher and I was going to start my second year, which would have been so exciting. So I set it to 60 books because I thought that would be manageable and maybe achievable given, you know, the split workload of doing social media and also, you know, doing full-time study as well. So that was the original plan. However, as I've sort of mentioned a few times on my channel, this year I had a few health setbacks and I was diagnosed with POTS, which is essentially like a dysfunction of your autonomic nervous system, which means like when I stand up, my heart rate just shoots through the roof because my body like can't hold salt very well, which means that my heart sort of struggles to pump blood to like all my vital organs. Does that make sense? So for about 6 months of this year, I quite literally had like no answers. I was seeing all these doctors and it was so like debilitating in a sense where I couldn't go to uni. So I had to put that on hold. However, you know, everything sort of does happen for a reason. And, you know, I know that it's so awful to have these sort of health things happening, but you know, because I wasn't at university, there was a few things that I was able to do. So I've obviously read 90 books this year, so I had a lot more time for reading because I was at home quite a lot. But I also was given the time to, you know, because I wasn't working or at uni, to spend time with you guys and grow my channel here and over on TikTok as well. Like it's just been sort of a blessing in disguise. So this year was like super special. I have had a lot of opportunities this year. Like I've done so many collaborations, you know, I've had an array of beautiful, you know, advanced reader copies sent to me. I was invited to my very first like movie premiere as an influencer, which is like crazy because I never thought in a million years that that would be something that I would, you know, be doing. But it's just so interesting how life throws you curveballs and everything truly does happen for a reason. 60 books turned into 91 books and I found some new all-time favorite reads this year. But I will sort of say that I feel like this year my average rating, and I will talk about this more in my like end of year reading wrap up at the end of the month. I feel like my average rating this year was very low because I was just reading books that were not, the quality of the books was not it, okay? It was not it. So it's going to lead into my final question today, which is question 23. And it is, after 2024, what are you prioritizing in 2025 reading wise. So the first one that I have here is sort of, I'm going to be reading books that I want and I'm going to be reading for fun, because I know there's a lot of debate about reading goals and reading challenges and things like that. And you know, there's two different sides to it, because of course a reading goal is so great if you're someone who maybe does struggle to read and you want to push yourself. Of course, set your reading goals, do that. That's wonderful. But there's another side to it where it's become very like exploited and like popular on social media to like read a certain amount of books. And like, if you are not reading as much as everybody else is, like something is wrong. And I cannot stand that at all. I think, like I was just saying to you guys, I would much rather read like 20 really good quality books and have some wonderful recommendations to give you, rather than reading 90 books and having 15 good recommendations. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I would rather just like have quality over quantity, and that's something I'm totally prioritizing next year. I also want to be going through and getting older books off my shelf. I feel like something that we are all doing is only recommending new books, or like, you know, popular books, like super popular books, which is great, but that also like leaves out so much like individuality as a reviewer and you know, someone who recommends books. We all know, how many times have we just randomly picked a book off our shelf that's been sitting there for ages and it's a hidden gem and we absolutely adore it? Like, that's what I want to do. As much as I love, you know, getting new books and recommending new books, there are books out there that are just waiting for somebody to love it and to push it out there. Like, you know, there's gold just sitting on our shelves, and that's what I want to look at next year. And my final sort of one here that I want to do next year is, as I was maybe touching on, is I want to read more dark romance. Last year I read heaps of dark romance. This year I just wasn't feeling it, I guess, because when I went to like do all my numbers for my end of year reading wrap up, I only read like 3 dark romances this year, which is so unlike me. So I definitely, like I said, it's a genre that I love so much. And you know, like I think about dark romance books as like scary movies, right? Like a lot of people will say like, why do you like scary movies? Because they have some of the best plots. Dark romances have some of the most intricate and intriguing plots, and I just love them so much. So I really want to get back into that next year. Mainly like the things I want to do next year is read the books that I know I'm going to love and reread my favorites. You know, like that is what reading should be about. It should not be about hitting a number. It should be about reading for love and, you know, passion and enjoyment. So yeah. Alrighty, you guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for sticking through all the way to the end. If you did, I really, really appreciate it. Have you guys had a go at the end of year book tag? I would love to know. As I said, you know, Destiny did this over a year ago or whatnot, so I'm sure there's a few different variations of it floating around. So if you give it a go, let me know. As always, you guys, if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to follow me on TikTok and on Instagram. I'll leave my handles on the screen and in the description box. And if you'd like to, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel, and make sure you are hitting the notification bell. That way you're notified each time a brand new video goes up. We do only have 2 more videos left for this year, you guys. It is so insane, but I'm so excited to share them with you. The next video coming is going to be the first line challenge. So I'm going to try and guess my 5-star reads based on their first line. And then of course the final video of the year is going to be the end of year reading wrap up. And I'm going to take you guys through every single book that I read this year, and hopefully you guys can find some awesome recommendations. So thank you guys so much for stopping by again. I really, really appreciate it. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a lovely day or a lovely night, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.